Farming has always been a part of Alice's life, selling eggs from 400 chickens when she was 13 to now running an international recruitment business. Coming up on this whirlwind chat includes the state of the farming industry in the UK, top tips for recruiting, where to visit in Austin, Texas, and the price of a pint of milk, to name a few. Let's get into it. Welcome to the first episode of Work This Way, recorded in the glorious Foundry Poole. I'm joined by Alice Coates, discussing everything from chicken farming to recruiting top tips. Alice, welcome. Tell us a little more about you and your business, Hatched.
So Hatched is a bespoke headhunting service. We focus primarily in North America, so America, Canada, in STEM subjects, so science, technology, engineering, maths. And right now, really, that is software and aerospace and defence. Whilst we grow out, we're a new company, but we're super ambitious, and we use a headhunting approach to find very, very niche skill sets to help solve our clients' problems.
Tell us a little bit about you then. Who is Alice?
My entrepreneurial career started a long time ago. I'm a farmer's daughter. I had 400 chickens at 13.
Sorry, what? You just dropped casually into conversation that you had 400 chickens when you were 13 years old. Educate our listeners on how that works as a young, thriving farmer.
So I was very lucky. The financial model was first 12 chickens my parents bought me. And I used to have a little shed on the farm because my parents are dairy farmers. And like I said, rather than pocket money, I got chicken feed. And then I could obviously make that pocket money into a lot more money. So started off with 12, absolutely fell in love with the chickens. They're hilarious. And got really into being against battery farming. Once I understood all of the really strong instincts that chickens have, it's horrendous. So I started by rescuing 50 battery hens. So they've already been laying for a year. They go through, you sort of rehabilitate them, and then they'll start laying again for you. So I did that quite a bit until I got up to about 300 chickens, and then I needed to get some land off my dad to have a bigger unit, which is really hard from getting land from a dairy farmer.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, that's like pitching a VC fund, basically. So, and it took me a while to do that. I had to come up with like a proper business plan and really
How old were you at this point?
I was probably 14 when I sort of got the bigger space and the shed. And of course, generally the chickens I had would lay one a day, maybe 6 or 5 a week in the winter. So I exhausted our friends network. I used to go door to door where my grandparents lived in the next town, and I sort of set up a eggs on legs round. And then I also had a local garden centre and a local cafe take the eggs. So yeah, I learned a lot about sales, ironically, through those chickens. Mm-hmm. And I travelled the world on the money I made as a teenager, doing something a bit different to a paper round or working in a pub. I went to university in Manchester, absolutely loved leaving the farm and going to a city. So Manchester took me to Austin, Texas for my career, which is why we're focused on the US and Canada. That's really, I did my career as a recruiter for 3 years before moving to America, but America made my career. I just loved my job even more over there. So I've always done software. Software is head and shoulders above Europe in America. The funding, the ideas, the entrepreneurial spirit behind technology in especially the US is mind-blowing and incredible. And I've had many, many happy years in Austin, Texas, growing teams, working closely with clients, solving really critical business issues for my clients, working super, super closely with them. I got married last year, so I sort of live hybrid UK-US as my husband's in the military. So I can't always choose where I want to live. And that's partly why I started my own business.
Why Austin, Texas, not Silicon Valley?
So Silicon Valley has up and come, and it is still an amazing place to get funding for startups, but it's an incredibly expensive place to live. And there was new tech hubs sprouting up across the US. Austin was one of those. So we wanted to be a part of that massive wave up rather than something that's already on a pedestal. And it's just an amazing place to live.
Alice, so a little birdie tells me that you were on the Junior Apprentice. Tell us more.
Yes, for my sins. So essentially I was 16. I was getting ready to apply to universities. I had the chickens and I had 3 other jobs, and I'd never had an interview. I'd kind of been gifted these jobs just through people that I knew and people who'd met me. So I thought, right, I'll apply for the Junior Apprentice. A lot of people at school had applied for it, and I'll just at least get some interview experience for unis. And then it kind of snowballed. And I remember getting to the final 20. I was thinking about pulling out because I didn't necessarily want to do it. And we didn't think we'd get that far. But, you know, every single stage, it's like, oh, my God, well, we've got to see what happens next. So, yeah, got down to the final 20.
What year was this?
This was in 2012. That was a good year. I learned to drive that year.
Good year.
Yeah. And then obviously got selected for the programme. Met some amazing people on it. Learned a hell of a lot about myself and how TV works. And actually, I would say what I learned about myself I really liked, and I can hold my head up high on that programme. I really didn't want to come across as a brat, which is easy to do. I'd rather have gone out a bit earlier and had people thinking I should have stayed in longer than the opposite, and that did happen.
Business is called Hatched.
Yeah.
Guess it makes sense now to us why it's called Hatched. Alice, you moved to Austin. You didn't know anyone?
Nope.
How did you make friends and immerse yourself in that city?
So I actually moved at a really interesting time. I moved on the 1st of February 2020. So when I moved, I was 24, I moved on my own. So had the opportunity with my last company to move over there, open an office. And when I left, COVID was something that was, you know, very far away. And then by the end of February, so that's the first month I was there, the borders closed.
Yeah.
And obviously none of us have ever experienced closed borders in our lifetime. And it was insane. So I had a super, super rocky landing. And because of the time difference as well, I'd finish work, be lonely, not know anyone, but everyone in the UK was asleep. So it was a crash landing, but it ended up really well in the end for me, I would say. So Texas being Texas, they didn't follow the rules for long. So it opened up relatively quickly. So whilst it was, you know, a pretty horrendous situation to begin with, within a couple of months, everyone there was back meeting, being super, like, hyper social because they'd been locked down for a couple of months.
So, Alice, I'm off to Austin. Give us 3 tips, places to visit, things to see.
Okay, you're going to be absolutely spoilt for choice. So first thing I would say is the barbecue. Well, barbecue and Tex-Mex. I'll do food together. So you have to try Tex-Mex. Phenomenal. Pretty much anywhere you go will be good. And barbecue, Franklin's is super popular, but it's really hard to get into. There's actually a few Michelin star barbecue places, but you can't go wrong with Terry Black's. Just walk in there. And I would go to Terry Black's after Barton Springs. I think it's an Olympic-sized swimming pool, but it's fed by a spring underneath it.
Yeah.
So it's beautiful water. It's not chlorinated or anything. And you've got this view of downtown Austin. So you can see Facebook, Google, you can see all of these huge tech companies with an old Austin institution. And then you have to go to Allen's Boots on South Congress. South Congress is just amazing in itself. The colours, the food, the people, it's just, Austin's known for being super quirky. So there's a saying in Texas, which is, if you're weird in Texas, all roads lead to Austin. So it's super, super interesting, quirky. So, and South Congress just encapsulates all of that.
Culturally, America is a fascinating place.
It is, yeah.
It's a beautiful country. What can UK entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs learn from US work culture?
Everyone in the US market and network that I said I was starting up my own business was like, yeah, go get it, girl.
Yeah.
Everyone should do that at least once, like, get it. Whereas, and everyone in the UK that I told was like, oof, good luck. Which is crazy because I think we actually have an amazing environment to take a risk. You know, we have the NHS, we have a good welfare state, we have much lower cost of living than in the US. But our mindset is way more conservative and cautious, which I think is part of the problem in the UK right now. We should be firing on all cylinders. We've got, you know, less to lose in some ways. Whereas in America, they'll just take the risk, go 100 miles an hour, back themselves. And actually, they can end up in a way worse situation by taking that risk because their healthcare is associated to their last employed role. It's a huge overhead. Everything costs more over there. But I think that sort of gumption to go and do it, that just gets money spinning. There's way more investment in startups. They all IPO for more money or they sell for more money. They do definitely work more hours and they take less holidays. So that's also part of the productivity increase over there and decrease over here. And I don't really have a good solution to that. But definitely, sort of work ethic aside, the mindset is just so much more entrepreneurial and job centric.
And entrepreneurial and intrapreneurial. So working within large organizations
Yeah.
and being entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
It's so
100%.
prevalent.
Yeah.
I think it's a really interesting point about the terrifying step from employment to self-employment in the United States. And frankly, how lucky we are over here in the UK to have the fallback of healthcare.
Yeah. And ultimately, and we all know the NHS has got problems, but if you are, you know, in a really bad way, you have a heart attack, you get a diagnosis of something terrible.
Yeah, you have
the
to
NHS
pay for your
is
ambulance,
there.
right?
Yeah. I mean, an ambulance in America, you better be dying.
Yeah.
It's thousands.
Yeah.
And most healthcare, it doesn't cover it. You know, quite often people have a heart attack and get driven to hospital still.
Mm-hmm.
So we are incredibly lucky here, but we don't tell ourselves that. We don't take the risks.
Alice, what does culture mean to you, company culture? And how important is that company culture when hiring?
Company culture for me is incredibly important. It's as important almost as understanding the technical requirements for a job for me. You could have someone who can do the job, but will they do the job? So can they, will they? And the company culture part can be the difference between saying yes to a job and no to a job. Because yes, they can do the job. Will they do the job? No, because they didn't like the person who interviewed them, or they don't like the work from home policies. So company culture is so important. And for me personally, we spend so much of our life working. It needs to be a good culture. You want people to at least enjoy what they're doing, feel impassioned by it, feel driven by the people that they're working amongst. So it really shouldn't be undervalued. Even on my parents' farm, it's something they think about a lot. And I don't really want to work with clients, and I generally don't work with clients who are revolving doors because of their culture. And I know that probably sounds counterintuitive. A lot of recruiters just make loads of placements there, but I really try and work with my clients on retention as well.
I think it's telling in the States, people will move to the other side of the country for a job, right?
Yes.
They will just up sticks.
Yeah.
Family, everyone, all commute by aeroplane, East Coast to West Coast on a weekly basis. This is a lot about culture. This is a lot about work ethic in the United States.
There's an incredible amount of hustle there. Everyone is very career driven in ways that in the UK, generally something in your life will make you move to a location first before the job will make you move. It's the complete opposite in the States. People are so prepared to get up and move for an extra bit of money or an interesting job. It's culturally incredibly different.
Do you employ from all over the world to go and work in Texas, in Austin, for your key clients?
Yeah, so I do some global searches. That's generally more for C-suite.
Right.
And so quite a lot of our candidates are already in the US or Canada. But yeah, I've done I do quite a few global searches for super, super niche things.
What's the most niche role you've filled or placed?
I had a vice president, a country manager for a mainframe to cloud client. So mainframe's obviously the original computer. So your technology there is spanning 50 years. And it was an incredibly operational, sales-focused job with very, very niche technical understandings. And they want someone who was once a programmer and wearing probably 1,000 hats in a field where a lot of people are retiring.
Someone with loads of experience, clearly.
Yeah.
And probably coming towards the end of their working life.
Well, that was the thing. I had to get someone that was also sort of extremely motivated.
Longevity.
Yeah. I had to map out basically the globe for that. I had so many interesting conversations with really amazing people. I work super, super closely with that client. I basically am their internal recruiter for the US. I'm trusted with a lot of confidential information, and I represent them, and it's nice. I've placed probably 30 or 40, maybe 50 candidates there. So it's really nice to be able to also put the person that's in charge of them all there as well.
Why is there such a reputation around the recruitment industry? The ones that I've worked with have been lovely.
Yeah, I think there's a few reasons. So one, there's no barrier to entry. So anyone really could pick up the phone and start recruiting. So you haven't had any standard level of practice or training. So there's a lot of bad ones out there and cowboys out there, and they're just hustling, probably panicking to try and get some sort of traction. So that's one reason. It can be an incredibly lucrative industry as well. So there's a lot of people trying their best, maybe a bit misguidedly, to get results. That's why I really try and steer more on the headhunt side, where we're super specialists. if we're speaking to you, we should be able to try and add value to either give you some information about the market, talk to you about relevant candidates, talk to you about relevant career changes. We should know more about what's going on than people we're speaking to. So adding value is super, super important. I think sales in general is dominated by men, especially technology, where I work, is dominated by men. But basically all the best recruiters I know are women. We're super diligent. If you don't follow up with the due process, you're not going to help clients solve their retention and talent acquisition problems. And talent acquisition always comes as one of the top 3 problems for all businesses. So that level of sort of detail orientatedness, discipline, and following processes. Yeah, all the women I know are the best recruiters, but it tends to be quite male dominated. Yeah.
Alice, we're growing Foundry fast across the UK. It's really important to me and us as a business and our co-founders, Legal in general, that we localise, we immerse ourselves in these towns, these places, in the communities. What advice would you give us on our journey when we're looking at hiring local experts, local heroes, as I like to call them?
Yeah, so great question. First and foremost, get in front of people. There will be local networking events, there'll be local meetups for certain things. And once you start opening those doors, those local people will open doors for you. Even though all of our jobs can be done remotely these days, doesn't mean they should be. And we still can't do any better than getting in front of people, letting them see your authentic self, seeing that you are someone that they want to work with, believing in the project. So first and foremost, yeah, absolutely get embedded with the local networking community. And I would say that really for any business. There will be some form of meetup or networking event.
Alice, Hatched has grown quickly in different locations around the world. How do you manage your schedule and priorities?
I love being busy, and actually the busier I am, often the more efficient I become as well. So I'm not really one for watching TV, if I'm completely honest. I'm a massive extrovert, so even if I'm not working, I love being with people, and I'm really into my sports as well. So rock climb, skiing or ski touring, triathlons, all that good stuff to sort of keep healthy but busy.
What's a ski tour?
A ski tour. So it's where you can go up the mountain as well as down, or across the mountain. So you have like little carpets that you put on the bottom of your skis. So you don't need the lift or anything like that. And it's just way more adventure. You can just go off in between mountain ranges.
Anything scary on one of these ski tours happen to you?
You have to know what happens if someone falls into a crevasse, which is possible.
Terrifying.
Yeah, and my husband's a lot heavier than me, so that just keeps me awake at night. He's way more over it than I am, and he could probably just pick me up out of them. But yeah, there's always dangers in the mountains. No one's bigger than the mountains, but that's part of the love of those kind of sports.
Tell us about your climbing.
I absolutely love climbing because everything you do at the gym, it comes into fruition there, and it's full body, and it's one of the few times where I'm present. I didn't really know what being present meant until I started climbing. And then I'd start climbing and I'm like, wow, I didn't think of anything else other than what I was just doing.
What competitions have you been in recently?
So I've done a couple of sprints. I'm doing a half Ironman in May next year, and I've got a full scheduled for the end of the season next year.
Amazing. Which full are you doing?
Copenhagen.
Wow.
Yeah.
That
I know, it's a great
incredible.
city.
Producer Gary loves Copenhagen.
Luckily, Copenhagen's fairly flat as well.
Alice, what are you listening to at the moment?
My podcasts are pretty rogue, so I absolutely love The Rest is Politics and The Economist podcast. So
Really?
yeah, I did anthropology and politics at uni, so I'm super, super interested in people and the world.
Makes sense.
And then my silly podcast is Off Menu, because I love food and I find them hilarious.
Tell us a bit more about the farm. From what I can see, it's really your formative years. Give us your view on the future of farming.
I think farming in this country is in a very bad way. You know, you can buy a bottle of water in a supermarket, it always costs more than milk. We're very used to produce being loss leaders, like eggs, milk, anything wheat-based.
Put that into context. A bottle of water, which is drained from a well, put into a plastic bottle, filtered or whatever, and then sent out and retailed.
It's
versus,
always cost more than a pint of milk.
Versus raising a cow, buying a cow, raising a herd of cows, cultivating that herd, milking that herd, maintaining that herd to deliver a pint of milk.
Absolutely.
Which costs less
than
a bottle of water.
Yeah, and that's why it makes me cross. Every now and again, the farming comes into the news and everyone's sort of, let's look after our British farmers, let's keep produce here. But they're quite happy to pay less for milk than they are for water, which is insanity.
Absolutely.
And since leaving the EU, a lot of farmers have lost the single farm payment, and a lot of farms used to break even before that. Wherever your main farm is, where your house was, depending on how many acres you had, you would get a lump sum from the EU, and that would give you some money to live off. So that's a subsidy. And with that, you'd keep certain hedges a bit longer. It was a bit more environmentally friendly way of farming. It also meant that we weren't shipping milk from China or getting super hormone-infested meat from the US. So we're farming in a more responsible way, trying to keep it in our country. I mean, not that long ago, we were closing borders, you know? I think it's really, really good when we've got a lot of people on a small island to be able to feed them with as much produce from here as possible. And actually, we have some of the highest meat standards in the world. And as we learn more and more about ultra-processed and hormonal meat, I think backing up this industry is so important. My dad always says, though, is that it never seems like it because all farmers are knackered, so they always come across as miserable. But they are. To farm, you have to be an eternal optimist.
Yeah.
Because you have to say, next year the weather will be better and we'll have more crops, or next year the milk prices will be better because they have to be. And most farmers that are in it, I mean, there are a lot of mental health problems and so on, but that doesn't mean they don't love the job and they don't love the herd and they don't love the tractors.
You mentioned your husband's, your UK base is Poole, which is why you're here today.
Yeah.
Because you work from Foundry and you're in Poole, not in America. Yeah. Tell us about Poole.
Poole, I found Poole very difficult when I first moved here, to be completely honest. It is obviously an amazing place to live in the UK, and we've got the Purbex. There's so much climbing around here and amazing running and cycling, all the stuff that I love. But moving from Austin, Texas, was a culture shock. I had a bit of whiplash, to be completely honest. A lot of people move from London to here and they're like, this is so great. This is better than, this is so great. But I struggled, really struggled working remotely here when I moved. So because I'm too extroverted, so having somewhere to come has been amazing. And my soul has probably quietened over the last few years. I think the mountains helped me come back down to earth a bit.
Alice, tell us what you'd like to achieve in the next year.
I want to be a destination employer in all the places that I'm working from. So I want to hire accountable, intelligent, passionate people who want to solve clients' problems and want to get the right people in situ and progress other people's careers. I want to be proud and be happy of what we're doing and the problems we're solving. I love finding solutions to complex problems, and that's something this job allows, whilst having quite a lot of fun along the way.
Alice, Foundry's growing quickly across the UK. We've got members from all sectors, all life stages, startups, 20-year established businesses. We've got brilliant entrepreneurs. We've got entrepreneurial intrapreneurs working in big businesses. Give us an example of the type of businesses or the sectors that you work in.
So personally, I work with SaaS companies, software companies, software as a service companies. We have quite a lot of defence and federal work. Obviously, I'm quite interested in that because of my home life.
Of course.
And again, I work with some ag tech companies.
Ag tech, agricultural tech. It's huge in America. Ag tech, is that about getting more out of agriculture? Is that about creating more food, more sustainable food?
It's about being, yes, partially. It's also about being way more productive with what you've got,
right,
or productive and environmentally friendly.
Yeah.
And there's both on the robotic front, on the software front. I mean, John Deere now you could argue it's a tech company as much as it is a tractor company.
I bet its valuation is a little bit more than if it was a tractor company.
Absolutely. So there's loads of interesting work over there. But again, it's not just the industries that we specialise with, it's the types of companies. We want to make sure that they're growing in the right way for the right reasons, that our candidates are going to be happy there, that we can partner well to provide solutions.
There's software as a service, ag tech.
Yeah, defence tech. And then we also have a aerospace and defence division. And obviously there's always crossover with technology, because all those aerospace companies will have software engineers, hardware engineers. So we're growing a couple of divisions out there, but it's all really, really interesting work that I'm proud to be a part of.
How do our members and the people out there listening get in touch with you?
The easiest way by far will be through LinkedIn. So it's just Alice Coates @Hatched. And yeah, love growing my network, meeting up with people, happy to give free advice or any ideas that I think could help tweak people's recruitment processes or their retention processes. But I just love chatting as well. So always keen to meet interesting people.
Alice, thanks for coming on today. We really appreciate you coming on to Work This Way by Foundry. You've been a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to Work This Way by Foundry. If you've enjoyed this episode, do us a favour and do these few things. Get in touch with Alice if you need to chat about recruitment and headhunting. This show is weekly, so please subscribe to this podcast feed wherever you are currently listening. And do us a massive favour and leave us a 5-star review. Tell us what you like about the show. You can drop the team an email on wtw@foundryuk.com. This episode was hosted by myself, Adam Walker, edited by Josh Hall, and produced by Gary James.